I still remember the bitter scent of lavender that clung to the curtains the day everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday. My husband Richard had kissed my cheek absently before leaving for work, dressed in his charcoal suit, briefcase in hand, as if life were still ordinary. But something about his kiss felt foreign, distant, hollow. That same evening, I came home to find the front door wide open. Furniture gone. Walls bare. Drawers emptied. My heart thundered as I rushed from room to room, screaming his name, but the only answer was the echo of betrayal. A neatly stacked pile of documents waited on the coffee table, a divorce petition, signed and dated, along with a handwritten note. Eva, this wasn't easy, but it's what I need. I've moved on. Please don't contact me. No explanation. No warning. Just abandonment. Shaking, I checked the bank app on my phone. Balance, $4.36. Our joint savings, emptied. Credit cards, frozen. My name, removed from everything. I was locked out of my own life. Tears came, but rage followed fast. I was nothing but a stepping stone in his career, the supportive wife who'd sacrificed her own goals while he climbed the ladder at Farrington and Vale. A decade of love, erased in an afternoon. That night, I slept in my car, parked behind a gas station. Curled in the back seat, wrapped in an old coat, I stared at the ceiling until the sky turned gray. The next morning, I showed up at my friend Tasha's doorstep. No makeup, no strength, just shame. She opened the door, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. Eva, what the hell happened? Tasha had always warned me about Richard. She worked at the same firm, saw the ambition dripping from his pores, the way he smoothed lies with polished charm. I hadn't listened. He left me. Took everything. There's someone else, I choked. She went stiff. You mean Kira? My head snapped up. What? She nodded grimly. That in turn. He's been flaunting her around the office like a trophy. She's young, ambitious, loud. Total opposite of you. I sank into her couch, body numb. That week, I shuffled between hopeless job applications, half-eaten meals, and cold showers at the community center. Tasha helped where she could, but I knew I couldn't lean on her forever. Richard's name began popping up in social media posts, tagged at exotic resorts, smiling beside Kira in matching sunglasses, captioned, New Beginnings Redheart. Each post was a stab. He hadn't just moved on, he'd upgraded in his eyes. I wanted to scream, to shatter something, but instead I waited. Waited for a break. And then it came, unexpected, golden. Tasha mentioned the Farrington and Vale annual gala. An exclusive event, black tie only, filled with the city's elite. You should come, she said, half joking. Turn heads. Show him what he gave up. I hesitated. But that night, something shifted inside me. I wasn't going to mourn anymore. I was going to make him regret it. I borrowed a backless crimson dress from Tasha, tight, elegant, fierce. I styled my hair in soft waves, painted my lips wine red, and wrapped pain into perfume. The venue glittered like a dream. Crystal chandeliers. Champagne towers. Music humming like a lover's whisper. I stepped in and the air changed. Eyes turned. Whispers followed. I smiled. Then I saw him, Richard. He stood near the bar, sipping whiskey, hand on Kira's waist. She wore silver. Cheap smile. Vacant eyes. He looked happy. Until he saw me. His smirk dropped. Jaw clenched. His gaze traced every inch of me, hesitating at my collarbone, my legs, my lips. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. Good. But I didn't approach. I turned away, offering nothing. That's when I saw him. Dominic Vale. Tall. Distinguished. Slate-gray suit. Sharp cheekbones. He radiated power, not just from money, but from control. Command. Confidence. His eyes locked onto mine. He crossed the room with deliberate steps. You don't look like someone from finance, he said, voice smooth as silk. I'm not, I replied, sipping champagne. Just crashing. He smiled slowly. You crash well. I laughed. It surprised me. Dominic offered his hand. Care to join me for a real drink? Away from all this fake sparkle. I hesitated, then placed my fingers in his palm. We slipped into a quieter corner, candle lit and velvet draped. He poured scotch, the expensive kind, and leaned in. What's your name? Eva. Eva, he echoed, tasting it. I've seen that man glaring at us since you walked in. Worse. Husband. His brows lifted slightly. Divorce. He left me. Took everything. His expression darkened. What's his name? Richard Connolly. Dominic's smile vanished. Interesting. He's one of mine. I blinked. You're? He nodded. Dominic Vale. The room spun for a moment. My pulse kicked. I just unknowingly walked into the arms of my husband's boss. I opened my mouth to explain, to pull away, but Dominic's gaze held me in place. You know, he said slowly, we have very strict policies about relationships between superiors and interns. Connolly might be violating more than just wedding vows. My breath caught. He's reckless. He lies on reports, cuts corners. I've had my eye on him. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Not embarrassment, power. A glimmer of possibility. Dominic's hand brushed mine, fingers grazing. Electricity crackled. Tell me, Eva. What do you want? I met his eyes. Revenge. He smiled. So do I. The following morning, my reflection startled me. After everything, after the rage, tears, humiliation, I didn't look broken. If anything, I looked dangerous, empowered. My lipstick was smudged, hair tangled, but my eyes held fire. I could still taste Dominic's scotch on my lips, still feel the burn of his fingers lightly brushing my wrist. He didn't kiss me that night. He didn't need to. The tension between us was intoxicating, sharper than any physical touch. And more than that, I had seen something in his expression, fury. Not just over Richard's affair with an intern, but over the audacity of a man who treated lives like paper contracts. Disposable, unsigned, tossed. Dominic texted me just before noon. Lunch. Today. My office. 1 o'clock. Come hungry, and not just for food. I wore confidence like a cloak. Tasha lent me a sleek cream blouse and high-waisted slacks. I pulled my hair into a low chignon and dabbed perfume on my wrist. When I arrived at Farrington and Vale, the receptionist blinked as if I were an unexpected ghost. Richard had erased me, but I was walking proof that he hadn't succeeded. Dominic's office sat at the top floor, overlooking the skyline. Glass walls, mahogany shelves, and one massive oil painting of a crimson wolf behind his desk. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, phone on the desk beside a silver tray of salmon, greens, and wine. You look breathtaking, he said without turning. You said come hungry. I listened. He finally turned, eyes lingering on me. So did I. We sat. We ate. And then we planned. He told me Richard had lied to his supervisors about a supposed consulting project that turned out to be 2 weeks in the Maldives with Kira, on the company's dime. Falsified receipts. Fake meetings. I was looking for the right reason to terminate him without a severance package, Dominic said, swirling his wine. Now I've got ammunition. And you want me involved? Not want, he replied. Need. No one can expose his personal misconduct better than you. Especially now. You mean the affair? Affair. Misappropriation. Manipulation. And his complete violation of our code of ethics. I want you to design a presentation, one that tells a story like a narrative case study. Show the rot under the polish. My pulse raced. Revenge served not through shouting or chaos, but through elegance. Through precision. Through exposure. You'll pay me? I asked carefully. Triple the standard contract. And something else, he added, leaning closer. You get to destroy him on your terms. For the next week, I became an architect of vengeance. I worked in secret at a private suite Dominic provided, far from Tasha, far from curious eyes. I dove into Richard's old emails, receipts, photos, all handed to me by Dominic's internal investigators. Each day I unraveled a little more. Expense reports coded under fake client. Flights booked under aliases. Erotic photos of Kira in hotels that Richard claimed were conferences. Documents that proved he'd stolen ideas from junior associates and passed them off as his own. Lies, 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 all wrapped in silk ties and tailored suit. Meanwhile, Dominic visited me each evening. At first, we worked, reviewed slides, refined timelines. Then the lines blurred. Fingers brushed too long. Laughter became foreplay. Glances became declarations. One night, as I pinned a printout to the wall, Dominic came up behind me, close enough that I could feel his breath on my neck. "You're incredible," he murmured. "Smart. Strategic. Devastating." I turned, eyes wide. "You sure this isn't just about Richard?" He tilted his head. "Eva, I could have ruined him without you. But I didn't want to." Silence stretched between us like stretched silk. "Then what do you want from me?" I whispered. He took my hand and guided it to his chest. Everything he threw away. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I kissed him. It was fierce. Starved. Years of neglect and betrayal erupted in that one desperate collision. I pressed against him, hands fisting his collar. His lips tasted like resolve. His hands gripped my waist, exploring, claiming. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The sofa became a battlefield. Clothes shed in fevered haste. My blouse slipped. His belt dropped. Flesh met flesh, raw and unfiltered. Our bodies spoke truths we hadn't dared say aloud. Passion flooded like rain on a drought-stricken field. When it ended, we lay tangled in each other, breathless. He brushed a damp curl from my forehead, kissed my temple, and whispered, "You're not broken, Eva. You're becoming." And I believed him. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an accessory. I wasn't the loyal wife behind the man. I was the center of the story. The next morning, I finalized the presentation, titled simply, "The Cost of Arrogance." Dominic reviewed it in silence, nodding slowly. When he was done, he looked at me with something more than desire in his gaze. Something reverent. "This is the beginning of something," he said. "Yes," I replied, my voice calm. "The end of Richard." 2 weeks later, the boardroom crackled with tension. Suits shifted uneasily. Lattes went untouched. The 10 most powerful minds at Farrington and Vale sat waiting for a presentation they hadn't anticipated. In walked Dominic, calm as an ocean before a storm. And behind him me, dressed in black silk, hair coiled like defiance, heels clicking like gunshots. The moment Richard spotted me, his eyes flared. Panic bloomed beneath his carefully rehearsed smirk. Kira, seated beside him, glanced at me with narrowed suspicion. She clutched her tablet like a shield. Dominic stood at the head of the table and said, "Before we move forward, we have a special review to conduct. Ms. Eva Connolly has prepared an independent audit that warrants your full attention." I didn't flinch. I walked to the projector, slid in the drive, and began. The first slide lit the room with a stark white title. "The Cost of Arrogance. Misconduct and Manipulation within Farrington and Vale." Every word I spoke sliced clean. Documented lies. Expense fraud. Misused company funds. Exploitation of interns. Stolen intellectual property. I backed each accusation with timestamps, emails, photos. Everything Dominic's team had collected, and everything I personally endured. When Richard finally stood, he was red-faced, trembling. "This is insane. She's not even part of this company. This is slander." Dominic leaned forward. "It's truth, Richard. And you should be grateful we're not already calling in the authorities. Who the hell do you think you are, letting her, my ex, take this public?" "I'm the man cleaning up the mess you created," Dominic replied, ice in his voice. "And Eva isn't just your ex. She's the one who gave up everything to support you. Until you decided betrayal was more fun than gratitude. The silence that followed was suffocating. Richard glared at me. You think this makes you powerful? You're still just bitter. You were always weak, Eva. Always clinging. I didn't blink. Then why are you the one unraveling in front of 10 executives while I control the narrative? He lunged forward, rage boiling. But Dominic stood between us before he could take another step. You're finished here, Dominic said. Security is waiting downstairs. Your contract is terminated. Your pension revoked. Your name stricken from every account tied to this firm. Consider this mercy. Because I could take it further. Richard stared at him, stunned. Then looked at me like I'd become a stranger. You did this. You ruined me. No, I replied. You ruined yourself. I just turned the lights on. He was escorted out without another word. Kira, realizing the sinking ship she'd attached herself to, tried slipping out unnoticed. Dominic stopped her. Miss Eldon, Human Resources will be calling you regarding your role in this misconduct. Please don't disappear. When the door shut, the room exhaled. Dominic turned to the board. Apologies for the disruption. We'll resume the quarterly review in 15 minutes. He took my hand and led me down a quiet hallway to his private office. Once the door clicked shut, I burst into laughter, a full, wild release. I can't believe that happened, I said, breathless. You destroyed him, Dominic replied, smiling. Cleanly. Beautifully. The tension between us reignited instantly. He cupped my face, his eyes searching mine. You didn't just expose him. You proved something. What's that? That you're meant for more. So much more. He pulled me into a deep kiss, one that felt like a promise. That night, I didn't go back to Tasha's. I stayed with Dominic. We didn't pretend it was just about lust this time. We weren't strangers in heat. We were two broken weapons finding use in each other's hands. He undressed me slowly, reverently. The fire was still there, burning hotter than ever, but it had deepened. Lust was no longer a storm. It was molten. It was purpose. Each touch said, you are not disposable. You are not forgotten. Our bodies moved in rhythm, deliberate, sacred. He whispered my name like a secret. I whispered his like salvation. When morning light spilled across his sheets, I stared at the man beside me and wondered how someone like Richard ever made me feel small. Dominic made me feel seen. Not just wanted, but valued. Needed. Over breakfast, he made it official. I want to offer you a position, he said, pouring coffee. Public relations. Lead role. You have strategy. You know how to control perception. You're brilliant. I blinked. Me? But I've never. You've survived betrayal, homelessness, emotional collapse, and turned it into a case study that saved my firm from scandal. You're exactly who I want managing our image. I felt tears press the edge of my vision, not from sadness, but from the ache of being chosen for the right reasons. I'll need a new nameplate, I said, grinning. Dominic reached across the table and took my hand. And a corner office. Life, once stripped of meaning, now overflowed with promise. I had no illusions that everything would be perfect. But this time, I wasn't building someone else's kingdom. I was building my own. It had been 2 months since Richard's disgrace and my transformation. The offices at Farrington and Vale had grown accustomed to my presence. I'd taken over public relations with a quiet force that left no room for doubt. My nameplate gleamed at the entrance of my corner office, and though the view of the skyline from my window was breathtaking, it was the view of my reflection in the glass that made me smile now. Dominic was my constant ally, more than an employer now, more than a man I'd once merely kissed in a moment of vengeance. He had become something rare, something real. We weren't playing games anymore. Lunch? He asked one morning, peeking his head through my office door. He knew I loved the corner cafe across the street. I smiled, feeling the weight of my responsibilities, but also the weight of his affection, which I never took for granted. Lunch sounds perfect, I replied, pushing my paperwork aside. He waited, patiently, as I slipped into my coat, then walked beside me through the marble halls of the building. The outside world felt light compared to the one I'd left behind, yet still, there was an underlying sense of readiness, of power in every step I took. A new version of me walked beside Dominic. We were no longer two people on separate paths. We were collaborators. As we crossed the street to the cafe, I checked my phone. A text from Tasha. "Did you hear? Richard's suing the company. Can you believe the audacity?" I laughed bitterly. Richard's desperation was his last card. The court case would be a spectacle, but it would be his final cry in the winds of defeat. Dominic had prepared for it, of course. He'd always been 10 steps ahead. "Something funny?" Dominic asked, his voice smooth. "Richard's suing Farrington and Vale," I said, showing him my phone. "I almost feel bad for him." "Almost." Dominic laughed, low and amused. "Well, you'll have to get in line behind the lawyers who've already rejected him." Lunch was filled with light banter, but beneath the surface, I couldn't ignore the satisfaction of knowing that I was thriving while Richard spiraled. We sat close, closer than ever. Dominic's hand brushed against mine, warm, steady. As we finished our meal and returned to the office, I felt a shift in the air, a subtle weight as I entered the elevator with him. The world was no longer a series of painful chapters, like it had been with Richard. It was now a space of creation. But that didn't mean I was done. The time had come to deliver my final act of closure. I opened my laptop in the privacy of my office. Richard's lawsuit was falling apart. He couldn't prove a single one of his accusations. But there was one more thing I could do. I could make him regret ever thinking he could escape the truth. I drafted an email to the entire board at Farrington and Vale, a message so succinct, so precise, it would send a message he would never forget. To the esteemed members of Farrington and Vale, I write to inform you that after careful consideration, I've come to a decision regarding my future with the company. It has been an incredible experience to serve in the capacity of head of public relations, and I am immensely proud of what we've built. However, I believe it is time for me to move on. As you are aware, the recent case involving Richard Connolly has caused unnecessary drama and distractions. It is my opinion that his lawsuit, though frivolous, was a desperate attempt to escape the consequences of his own actions. It is a shame when someone can't recognize their mistakes until they're facing the consequences. To that end, I feel it is only fitting that my resignation comes with a reminder of what happens when one takes advantage of the opportunities given to them and forgets the importance of loyalty and integrity. I have attached a series of documents that chronicle Mr. Connolly's actions, including his misuse of company resources, harassment of staff members, and fraudulent claims. These are not for public release but for the company's record. In closing, I wish Farrington and Vale continued success in all future endeavors. Sincerely, Eva Connolly, former head of public relations. I hit send. Then I leaned back, eyes closed, and exhaled slowly. The email was my final blow. I had taken everything he'd tried to strip from me, built it back with my own hands, and now I was dismantling everything he had left. No public spectacle. No grand speech. Just facts delivered coldly. I didn't need a courtroom to finish him. I just needed the truth. Dominic walked in minutes later. He looked at my screen and then at me, a soft smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I assume that's the final nail in the coffin?" he asked, his voice smooth with satisfaction. "Not just a nail," I said, standing up to face him. "It's the whole damn lid." His smile widened, and without another word, he pulled me into his arms. This wasn't just victory. It wasn't just closure. It was power, mine, his, ours. Together, we had taken everything Richard had thrown away and turned it into something beautiful. "We're unstoppable, Eva," he murmured, his lips grazing my forehead. "I know," I whispered back, my voice steady, but my heart racing. "And this is only the beginning." Epilogue. Richard's lawsuit crumbled under the weight of my email. The evidence I'd provided was irrefutable. His reputation, once polished and powerful, now lay in tatters. He vanished from Farrington and Vale. Kira, too, followed suit, quietly resigning and leaving behind only whispers of her involvement. As for Dominic and me, our connection deepened. We built something together: trust, respect, love. I no longer lived in the shadows of someone else's dream. I created my own. And in the end, I realized something. Richard didn't leave me destitute. He left me free. Free to become everything I was meant to be. And that was more than revenge. It was redemption.